SS Britannic dazzled passengers with Victorian grandeur, but below deck, crew toiled in suffocating heat and coal dust. Stokers shoveled up to 200 tons of coal per day in boiler rooms reaching 120 degrees Fahrenheit, often stripped to the waist and covered in soot. While guests enjoyed lavish dining and promenades, the men below sweated through exhausting, dangerous labor, a world away from the opulence above. Crew turnover was high, as few could endure the relentless conditions for long. SS Servia introduced electric lighting and modern amenities, but for the crew, it meant endless maintenance and cleaning. Keeping 1,000 bulbs and miles of wiring operational required constant vigilance, and the ship's size meant stewards walked miles each shift. While passengers marveled at the innovation, the crew's daily grind left them exhausted, with little time for rest as every detail had to meet the highest standards. Even a single failed light could draw a reprimand. SS City of Paris was famed for speed, but its notorious rolling in rough seas made life miserable for staff. Serving meals and maintaining order became a battle against constant motion, with plates and cutlery sliding across tables. Seasickness was rampant, and even simple tasks turned into endurance tests as the ship pitched and swayed across the Atlantic. Crew often worked double shifts to cover for sick colleagues, making every crossing a challenge. SS Teutonic's naval discipline set it apart, but strict routines and harsh punishments wore down morale. Officers enforced military-style order, with daily inspections and drills that left little room for error or personal freedom. Crew members found the environment stifling, and even minor infractions could mean extra duty or lost pay. The ship's dual role as a liner and auxiliary cruiser meant military rules overshadowed civilian comfort, making life below decks tense. SS Majestic impressed travelers, but safety was a constant worry for those working below. Outdated lifeboat arrangements and overcrowded quarters left crew anxious about emergencies, especially with over 1,400 people aboard. The lack of proper safety drills and equipment meant many doubted their chances if disaster struck at sea. Crew quarters were cramped and poorly ventilated, a stark contrast to the grand public rooms above. SS Campania's reputation for luxury came at a cost: psychological pressure to maintain perfection. Any mistake could draw sharp criticism from officers or complaints from demanding guests, and the ship's 600-strong crew was always under scrutiny. The constant focus on spotless brass and polished woodwork created a tense atmosphere, where even minor errors could lead to disciplinary action. Crew were expected to be invisible, yet flawless. SS Lucania was always in demand, but peak seasons stretched the crew to their limits. Fully booked voyages meant stewards and cooks worked double shifts, often 16 hours a day, sacrificing sleep and personal time. The relentless pace left many exhausted, struggling to keep up with the expectations of luxury service. While passengers enjoyed elaborate banquets, the kitchen staff worked in sweltering heat, rarely seeing daylight. RMS Oceanic was the queen of the sea, but its massive engines made life below deck grueling. Engineers and firemen endured deafening noise and stifling heat, far removed from the ship's glamorous image. The physical toll of keeping the engines running was immense, with shifts lasting up to 12 hours. While guests strolled on deck, the men below worked in a world of steam, sweat, and machinery. RMS Celtic's vast size isolated crew deep within the hull for weeks at a time. Many rarely saw daylight, working in monotonous routines far from family and friends. The grandeur above felt distant, as the isolation and repetitive tasks wore down morale on long voyages. Crew messes were windowless and noisy, a stark contrast to the sunlit lounges enjoyed by passengers. RMS Cedric's Edwardian elegance masked a harsh reality. Officers enforced discipline with little regard for crew welfare. Complaints were ignored, and the rigid hierarchy left many feeling powerless. Crew were expected to stand for roll call at 6 a.m. and could be docked pay for minor infractions. The sense of injustice and lack of support fueled resentment among those who kept the ship running. RMS Baltic was praised for comfort, but safety concerns haunted the crew. Poorly designed watertight doors and bulkheads made escape routes uncertain, and drills were infrequent. Many worried that in an emergency, flooding would spread rapidly, and their own safety was an afterthought compared to passenger luxury. Crew quarters were located far from lifeboats, increasing anxiety during rough crossings. RMS Mauritania's record-breaking speed demanded non-stop effort from the engineering crew. Stokers and mechanics worked around the clock to keep the engines at full power, burning up to 1,000 tons of coal per day. The relentless pace left little time for rest, and exhaustion was a constant companion for those below decks. While passengers boasted of fast crossings, the crew paid the price in sweat and fatigue. RMS Lusitania's controversial reputation brought psychological stress to every voyage. Rumors of secret armaments and the threat of submarine attack kept nerves on edge. Crew had to maintain calm for passengers while quietly fearing for their own safety on each crossing. The tension was heightened by frequent lifeboat drills and the knowledge that the ship was a target. RMS Olympic was the pride of the White Star Line, but wartime service brought harsh conditions. Conversion to a troop transport meant overcrowding, disease, and long hours, with up to 6,000 soldiers aboard. The contrast between peacetime luxury and wartime hardship left many longing for safer, more predictable assignments. Crew often slept in makeshift bunks, far from the comfort of the ship's original design. RMS Titanic's maiden voyage was a rush, leaving crew undertrained and overwhelmed. The pressure to serve demanding first-class passengers was intense, and many felt unprepared for emergencies. Inadequate drills and unfamiliar layouts added to the stress, making the luxury above seem out of reach. Crew quarters were cramped, and many had never worked together before, compounding the chaos when disaster struck. HMHS Britannic's conversion to a hospital ship exposed crew to constant danger. Mines and torpedoes were ever-present threats, and medical staff worked under blackout conditions. The fear of attack and the challenge of caring for wounded soldiers in hazardous waters made every voyage nerve-wracking. Crew had to be ready for emergencies at any hour, often with little warning. SS Imperata, later RMS Berengaria, was a floating palace, but its ornate interiors meant endless chores for the crew. Polishing brass, cleaning vast public spaces, and serving hundreds of guests left little time for rest. The ship's grand staircase alone required hours of daily attention. The pressure to uphold the ship's reputation for opulence made every day a marathon. SS Vaterland, later RMS Leviathan, overwhelmed crew with its sheer scale. Navigating endless corridors and serving thousands of passengers created fatigue and a sense of isolation. The vastness of the ship made teamwork difficult, and many felt lost in the floating city. Crew often walked several miles each day just to complete their duties. SS Bismarck, later RMS Majestic, brought strict management after its seizure by the British. Rules were enforced rigidly, and German crew who stayed on faced suspicion and limited advancement. The transition from German to British service created tension and a sense of alienation. Crew were often caught between conflicting expectations and cultures. SS Paris dazzled with French elegance, but the kitchens and engine rooms were punishing. Gourmet cuisine demanded long hours in hot, cramped spaces, with little recognition for the effort. The ship's bakery alone produced thousands of rolls daily. While guests dined in style, cooks and stokers sweated through grueling shifts far from the glamour above. SS Île-de-France's Art Deco style meant frequent refits and redecorations, keeping the crew in a constant state of upheaval. Cleaning, painting, and rearranging for high-profile guests left little time for rest. The ship's ever-changing decor required staff to learn new routines constantly, adding to the workload and stress. SS Bremen's quest for speed put safety at risk. High-speed crossings through unpredictable North Atlantic weather meant sailing through storms that would have delayed other ships. Crew worried about structural stress and the potential for disaster, knowing speed was always prioritized. The ship's record runs were a point of pride for passengers, but a source of anxiety for those below. SS Europa's strict discipline left little room for error. Officers enforced rules with military precision, and even minor mistakes could result in harsh punishment. Crew were expected to maintain perfect order, and inspections were frequent and thorough. The constant pressure to perform left many anxious and demoralized, despite the ship's reputation for German engineering. RMS Queen Mary was the epitome of British luxury, but wartime service brought blackout drills, overcrowding, and the threat of attack. Crew endured long hours and little comfort, bearing the brunt of the ship's dual roles as liner and troopship. At times, over 15,000 people were aboard, straining every system and making rest nearly impossible. RMS Queen Elizabeth's immense size meant more passengers, more cabins, and more work for everyone below decks. Tight turnaround times and high standards left many crew members exhausted by the end of each voyage, with little time to recover. The ship's laundry alone processed thousands of sheets and towels daily, adding to the workload. SS United States broke speed records, but constant drills and secrecy wore on the crew. The ship's dual role as a potential troop transport meant frequent security checks and limited shore leave. Crew were required to memorize evacuation routes and participate in surprise drills, creating an atmosphere of tension and uncertainty. SS France was a symbol of national pride, but the demanding schedule left crew with little rest. Frequent crossings and tight turnarounds meant long hours and little personal time. The ship's kitchens prepared up to 5,000 meals a day, and the pressure to maintain the ship's reputation for elegance was relentless. RMS Queen Elizabeth II was a modern icon, but frequent mechanical issues and engine room fires put crew safety at risk. The ship's complex systems required constant vigilance, and breakdowns were not uncommon. Crew had to be ready to respond to emergencies at any time, knowing that even routine operations could turn dangerous in an instant. SS Rotterdam was celebrated for Dutch design, but peak cruise seasons stretched the crew thin. Every voyage was packed, and stewards and cooks worked long hours to keep up with passenger demands, often sacrificing sleep and personal time. The ship's popularity meant little downtime, and the pressure to deliver flawless service was constant. SS Canberra was a favorite among travelers, but long periods at sea and limited shore leave took a psychological toll on the crew. Extended cruises meant weeks or months away from home, leading to feelings of isolation and homesickness. The contrast between the passengers' holiday atmosphere and the crew's demanding routine was stark, making life aboard challenging for many.